What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. In this episode, we finally tracked down James for an update from out on the road. He has hit the road. He has played Vegas. He has played Memorial. He has played Waco. And various other events sprinkled in between. We check in with him, see how things are going, and just get a general update and some of his perspective from being out on the professional tour. I'm not going to give you guys a whole lot of intro here because I went pretty long with James, and I want to be able to keep all that in and still not go super deep with the episode and make it into the 2-hour range or whatever. I don't think you guys need to listen that long. This is not the Joe Rogan Experience or Smashbox TV, so I don't necessarily tend to go super long unless a conversation goes really long, and then I will include everything that I think is of interest to you guys. So without much further ado, I'll just let you guys know very briefly that I've been, of course, testing some new plastic. You've seen some new video ideas from me on the channel. I will be doing some more of that as soon as these rains kind of subside a little bit. It's been April rain so far in Oregon, but that's great. We need it. It's good for the environment. It's good for the rivers and the trees and everything. So I don't mind it too much, but I'm definitely itching to get back on the course and do some more filming. Have a bunch of ideas of things I want to do. I wanted to let you guys know that I really appreciate all the people that have supported me with my attempt to kind of be put myself out there more. You know, I'm trying to be more involved in seeing me on the camera, and it's been something that I've been afraid to do for a long time, and it's been really great. I've had a couple of people that have been rude about it, but really a very small minority, and a lot of people have been super supportive. I've had some really nice messages from folks that said that I have kind of inspired them to come out of their shell a little bit more and put themselves out there a little bit more despite their personal insecurities and whatever those might be, and that means a lot to me. So I really appreciate all you guys, and the support has been great, and I hope to keep it up. I definitely have a bunch of ideas of things I want to do. I got a bunch more discs to test and review, of course, and we'll get back to it as soon as I can. So without any further ado now, let's bring in the interview with James. Thanks very much for listening. I'll check you later. Okay, guys, so we did it. We finally tracked down James. First of all, where are you right now?
That was a great question. Today, I am currently outside of Dallas, Texas. I'm in Rockwall at the Nick Hyde Memorial.
Okay, and you just had just a complete cancellation of round 2 because of lightning, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, they had us kind of kicking back every few hours, so I was originally supposed to go off around 12:30. Then she got bumped at 1:30, 2:45, and then finally they just canceled it because they can't fit everybody in for today. So round 2 is officially off.
Did you throw any shots today?
I didn't throw anything today. I've been sitting in my RV waiting for the rain to let up and the lightning, and every time we got close, lightning would strike again, and I could hear the horns blow, and they had to pull everyone out on the course. So I think most of the FPO was probably out on the course today, and maybe the first couple rounds of the MPO, but for the most part, many people didn't throw a lot of shots today.
How does that work? Like, don't they have to complete a certain number of holes? Like, the whole field has to complete a certain number of holes for the round to count or something?
I think so, yeah. I'll be curious what they do with some of those other divisions. I don't know if, like, the MP40 went off this morning, and so did they get half of a round in, 9 holes, 4 holes? Where were they at?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure where people finished, but from what I saw in UDIS, they were canceling the round. And then I'm going to keep an eye on it tonight and see if any of the divisions actually got enough holes in to have it count.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting, man. That's rough. Seems like Texas is kind of a problem with that. You know, you never really know.
It's been pretty good. I was just saying to somebody, I was like, this is, we've been on the road for those of us that are pretty much playing every weekend. This is, we had snow in Vegas,
right?
But it didn't cancel any rounds, and it was chilly, but it wasn't really stopping us from playing. And then this is really the first time I've seen rain and lightning, and we've had a lot of wind down here in Texas.
That's
so
true.
The conditions have been tough, but I haven't even needed to get out my umbrella except for a brief little period last week at Texas State's, and haven't even needed the rain jacket. So
right,
for the most part, weather's been pretty good for the first 8 weeks or so of the season.
Well, that's good. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that really hasn't been too big of an issue. It seemed like some of the earlier events, like Memorial, looked pretty wonderful, and all that looked pretty dialed in.
Yeah. Been pretty great.
So let's backtrack. Your first event out on the road was Vegas, correct?
It's Vegas. Yes, that is correct.
Okay. What was Vegas like?
Vegas was fantastic. Honestly, that is probably the best way to start the season. for anyone that has never been to that event, like myself, it is a perfect showcase. The way they put the event together, everything about it is spectacular. All three of the courses are different and unique, but they have them all on the same property.
Yeah.
So what's great is like this weekend, they had to split up since we're playing Harry Meyer's course. They had the AMs play on a different weekend than the Pro Division, whereas at Vegas, that was actually my last tournament as an amateur, and all the AMs, all the pros play on one of those three courses on the property. They shut down the clubhouse. It's only for disc golfers. They actually take down the driving range and split that half into a disc driving range, and then half of it they put up 25 baskets and have putting arena. And they had people barbecuing. It's just like a massive. They have all the vendors out there, the fly mart. So a really good atmosphere. The player parties on site, so you get to really interact with all the pros if you want to. Everyone stays on site, so it's a really fun kickoff to the year.
Nice. That sounds great, man. That sounds really cool. How many holes of like traditional golf are actually on that property that you guys are turning into 3 disc golf courses? Is it just one 18-hole course?
I think they might. I think they have a few. I
Okay.
want to say they have 2 there, but I'm not 100% sure because everything from the disc golf perspective does route back to the clubhouse. So I couldn't quite tell if there are 2 distinct 18-hole ball golf courses or if it's one massive property that they've just converted into 3.
Was Vegas also the first tournament you've played outside of Oregon?
This year, last year I was at Am Worlds and I've played
Oh,
in
right, right.
Illinois where I have family. So I've played a few outside, but it was my first tournament in quite a few months.
Right.
So it was a good start to the season.
I guess Washington counts too. Like you played the slosh up
Yeah,
in
I did play
Bonneville.
Slosh up
That
there. Yeah, that was the only tournament I had played. Yeah,
it's
when I was
barely
back.
Washington, but it counts.
Yeah, technically Washington.
We should claim that course. That's I think Oregon should own that course. That's a good
Yeah,
track. I haven't been
it
there in a
does.
while. It's a really good one. Okay, so how did it go actually on the course for your first few events?
It's definitely been a struggle. What was interesting about Vegas, uh, for me personally, was that was my last tournament as an AM, and I was the highest rated AM in the field. And I have a number of second places, third places. When I was playing in Oregon, I felt like it was getting close to time to moving up to the MPO division. And so I don't know if I went into Vegas with a slightly inflated ego or what it was, but I also ran into an issue where I was trying to get everything ready from a personal perspective to leave on tour, and I ran out of time. So I drove 14 hours the first day and then 7 hours the next day and got into Vegas around 2 or 3 p.m. And I walked, I think, 16 holes of the 54 that we were playing. So I had no practice. I didn't even see one of the courses at all. And so it was kind of just, can you rely on your natural talent? And as I'm learning, being out here on tour, putting in the practice and putting in the effort, there's something to be said about playing at your home course and a spot that you've played or a course you've played 100 times. You've probably been on every inch of that course. You know where to scramble, what to throw at this distance or that. And that was very foreign to me, being on a completely new course every single day and having not thrown any shots that judging the distance, judging the wind, where do you want to miss if you're going to throw an aggressive shot or what side of the basket do you want to end on, making sure you're always trying to get into the headwind or excuse me, into the tailwind there so you have good putts. So it was testing you in a lot of ways, which is a really good start right out of the gate. So I would say my round ratings were disappointing. I felt like I was not playing well, and it's taken me some time to kind of get up to speed here at the beginning of the year.
Right, right. It's got to be an adjustment. Yeah, like you said, just trying to come to terms with playing courses that you don't really understand, you don't really know the pitfalls of, you don't have that experience. So yeah, that's kind of where the practice and the preparation comes in. And then for other people that have been on the tour for multiple years, then they actually have tournament
But
experience,
yeah,
which you don't really have
exactly.
either.
I don't have a lot of that. Yeah, so that's absolutely true. And um, one thing that was interesting as we were getting out there too is just staying with it. I think people come and practice and they have a game plan. And I think we talked about this last time. Like, what are you going to try to do? Do you dream of what shot you're going to make on each hole? And not so much at Vegas, but definitely as I got into Memorial and I started to play with 1,000 rated players, they throw a lot further than I do. And so they take very different lines than what I practiced. And so somebody would throw a shot and be like, "Oh, that's a line I didn't even think I can do that." Well, no, I can't. I don't throw 450. And some of these guys that throw 450, 500, they're taking different lines to the baskets. And so trying to stay within yourself
Yeah.
and be okay with the fact you're throwing 350, not 550, and just playing your game has been something else that I've been trying to adjust to in the last couple events.
Sure, I can definitely see that. I mean, I have that myself because I don't throw as far as you. I don't throw as far as Andy, and it's tough to like. Yeah, I gotta just stick with my own game and kind of try to find the strokes where I can.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that has really stood out for you that surprised you or caught you off guard?
From a disc golf perspective,
Yeah, just things you've noticed so far as just being on the road.
um, I think I'm loving being on the road. It's been fantastic. A day like today is kind of weird where pretty much every day I feel like I'm outside playing disc golf, I'm having fun. Everyone on tour is really great. So I think that's been somewhat surprising is how approachable everybody is. Um, I think, again, for me, this is sort of a dream come true to come and do this. And so you see guys like Paul and Ricky. And my favorite experience actually of Vegas was, I hadn't played a lot of tournaments up to that point. It had been cold in Oregon. I'd been traveling a bunch last year. Played very poorly each day, and so on the first day, I can't remember what wasn't working, but I think I wasn't getting off the tee. So I stayed after the round and went to the driving range and stayed till essentially the sun went down. And there was one other person on the practice ground. It was Paul Macbeth, and he and I are sitting there chatting, and he's throwing my discs back to me as we're going to collect them. Second day, I think I wasn't putting very well. It's like, okay, shaking off that rust. Again, same thing. Stay really late, basically till the sun goes down again. I see one other person stay until the place essentially shuts down, and it's Ricky Wysocki, and he's been putting for 4 hours. And
Yeah,
so
that's
there's a
awesome.
reason those guys are on top. But at the same time, they're willing to have a conversation and be there and be in your space. And Paul's throwing disc to me. I'm like, this is straight out of a storybook.
Right.
So a lot of the guys I played with Garrett Gurthie yesterday, really great guy, great conversation. And so I've found that a lot of even the top tier pros are approachable and they're out here having a good time too. And while they are better than me and a lot of people, they also aren't to that superstar level where they don't have any time for you. And so that's been really cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. I was kind of surprised by that too, just going out to Beaver State over the years and stuff. The first few times I went, I was pretty hesitant. I was a little weird about it. I didn't want to talk to anybody or anything like that. And kind of the more I've opened up a little bit, the more you realize that yeah, they're all pretty cool. You can talk to anybody. If you
Yeah.
want a disc signed or something like that, it's all good. They may not want to sign a disc if they're like practicing or like right about to tee off or something like that. But especially like post round when people are hanging out, it's all good. Like I got a ton of selfies with people at Beaver State last year, and it's
Right.
great. It's great to feel that sense of community and just be surrounded by people that care about it as much as you. Because I'm
Absolutely.
have a lot of friends that play casually and stuff, but outside of you and Andy and Anthony, like I don't really have a lot of friends that are into it, that geek out on all the different aspects of it. So it's just
Right.
wonderful to be like out at Beaver State every year and just have that sense of feel of just like, yeah, I'm part of this, and there are a lot of people around here that really care about this, and all that kind of stuff is really great.
Yeah, like you said, it's a huge community here. Everyone's united in their love for the sport, and so you can see that in your interactions with people. And so it makes hanging out with people after a round, during a round, practicing, even playing. There is obviously that competitive nature, but it's good-hearted, and so it's really nice.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. So, how was Memorial? What did you think of Fountain Hills?
I actually really enjoyed it. It was picturesque. It was gorgeous. It was so nice to kind of get out of the winter and be someplace warm. I had family there, so I had my uncle caddying for me all weekend, and so he didn't know much about disc golf. So getting to share that with him, get him on the bag, get him out on the course was fun. This is going to sound weird because if you went and looked at my scores, that would not prove to be true. But I felt Memorial was actually pretty easy, but I scored terribly. And that was, again, part of it. That was my first pro event. And what kept happening, and I noticed this after days 1 and 2, was, first hole in Memorial. It's 392 over the water. You basically need to throw it at least 380 or you're going into the lake. And two of my guys put on a massive hyzer, and they basically get right next to the basket. And Memorial's set up pretty nicely where you have a decent crowd there. They announce you and you come on. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna throw way to the right and lay up. I'm gonna go for it. Of course, straight out of bounds. Like I can get 400, but full flex needs to, maybe need the right wind. There's a lot of things that
Right.
need to have go right. Whereas these guys have big arms, and so I definitely got caught at Memorial going for a lot more shots that I shouldn't have, and that's where it can be punishing. Is there's so much water at Memorial, that's where it gets you. But at the same time, I think seven to ten of the holes are under 300 feet, and they're like mid-range putters, and so if you put something on a hyzer, you make it around the Mando, if you just throw a decent shot, you can score on that course. And so
Sure.
that was the hard part is I had taken so many out of bounds. I lost almost every single one of my main drivers at Memorial. So that has actually been, I think, my new challenge is my bag is now completely different than in the bag that we did together because I've lost all my main discs and
Oh
I
man.
I don't use a lot of the same molds. And so I'm sort of reconstructing a bag, learning how things work. And I think part of that has been what's been impacting me recently. And now I understand, finally, why a lot of the pros stick to 4 or 5 molds. So
Right.
that you lose something, you can work it back in immediately. Whereas I'm having to learn all new discs, all new stabilities. How does it fly in the wind versus here or there? So I am in a massive learning curve again. And so Memorial was very trying for me.
Sure. What all did you lose? Like you lost your sheriff and all that stuff?
Lost my Sheriff, lost my Havoc, I lost my main Destroyer, I lost my main Rock 3 mid.
Damn.
I lose a fairway driver too. So yeah, I lost probably 5 of my main 6 discs that I throw.
Oh man.
So I
That's
got
crazy.
yeah, kind of crazy. So I have a couple buddies like, oh, I have Havocs, or I immediately went afterwards. Actually jumped into the. I know you're not supposed to go in the lake, but Austin Turner and I one day were out there looking. I was like, this is my favorite driver, and he was in the same spot. Like I lost my favorite whatever disc, and he's like, I'm just going into the lake, and I was like, I hear you're not supposed to do that. And he's like, it's way easier. Next thing you know, Austin Turner and I are just sloshing through the lake and just finding discs left and right. Of
Yeah.
course, I came out with 7, 8 discs. He comes out with 10. None of them are the discs we're looking for. So
Man.
we take them over to Spinners, and they give you a little discount if you bring in discs. So I picked up a new Ricky Raptor to replace my Destroyer, which I've been really enjoying actually, and then
Yeah.
picked up a new
Solid.
Sheriff. So I'm
Okay.
gonna try to reconstruct the bag in some of the way, but I got a burst Sheriff this time, and so it's a little bit beefier than my other one, and not quite as worked in. And so again, there will be a process, even getting that Sheriff broken in to the same way that I had it previously.
Absolutely. Yeah, it might not be a bad idea to get multiples of those too, and then kind of work them in a little bit, and then put them aside so that
Absolutely.
you have a
Yep.
couple. You don't have to go straight to a completely fresh disc.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's interesting. I kind of maybe saw that coming a little bit to be honest.
Yeah.
Just knowing the way you definitely had a bag system. Man, my neighbors are like screaming like crazy on the other side of this wall. There's
Oh, really?
two little girls
I can't.
going nuts. I hope it's not coming through on the recording, but I
I can't
guess
really. Yeah, I can't really hear it. That's funny.
there's like she's like 4 and 1.5 or something, so they go deep. But yeah,
Yep.
I was, I didn't want that for you to have to deal with that, but I kind of expected that might be an issue, just kind of knowing that
Yeah.
you tend to use specific molds for stuff, or a lot of different molds and like one particular disc rather than having, 2 or 3 sheriffs that are broken into
Right.
different levels, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. Well, maybe by the time you get back here for like Beaver State or something like that, we'll do another bag check and see how that's evolved. That'd be interesting for the
Yeah.
fans to check out what you've been throwing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Memorial, you said it's pretty easy, but like, what's your perspective on the performance that Eagle put down out there? I mean, it's just the scoring is
Uh,
insane, and it's kind of
its
crazy
scoring is
because
insane.
Paul
Yeah.
Macbeth, like, he wins Waco by a couple of strokes over Rick, and I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say had a very good break go his way on towards at the end of the event there, where he ended up taking a stroke on Rick. shanks it way out of bounds and somehow trickles back in. And that was a huge
Yep.
moment or whatever. So, but he won the event. He had the 18 down. He played great, but he only ended up winning by a few strokes. And Rick knew it was over. So
Yep.
one or two of those strokes on the last hole were pretty insignificant. And then he wins a big event, and everybody's like, he wins big in Florida, and that's huge. But then all of a sudden, everybody's losing their mind about Paul. It's like, did you guys forget what Eagle did like 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago? Like, did you forget that Rick was right there and like was leading the tournament all the way in Waco and barely lost by a couple of strokes? Like, it's not
Yeah.
that It's, I don't know. I feel like everybody was just kind of blowing it out of proportion a little bit because it's Paul and he has that air about him where people just lose their minds when he starts to do his thing.
Yeah. No, some of those guys at that top level, they're, what's great. The first day is always tough, or not tough, but I've been getting randomly paired with some of these guys, and so it is really fun to see it up close.
Yeah.
And then again, usually I've been playing somewhat poorly, so I get the earlier tee time, and the Ricks, the Pauls, they get that last tee time of the day. So what's great is I can go catch the last 9 holes or whatever of their round. And so what
Yeah.
was funny about Memorial, I think it was maybe the second, I can't remember which round, if it was the third or the fourth round, but the thing about Memorial is if you have a big arm, there's a reason that is tailor made for someone like an Eagle or a Simon.
Sure.
And I think I was sitting there, and I was sitting on the hill watching. I was watching Eagle at that point, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was his dad. He was sitting right next to me, and at one point we were in this spot where we could watch like 3 holes, and now knowing it was Eagle's dad, but he turned to me and was like, "Man, this is really boring disc golf." And I was
Wait,
like,
the
"Yeah,
Pat McMahon?
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no.
it was his dad critiquing his own son, saying that this was boring." And I was like, and I was just talking to him because I thought we were out there watching disc golf together. And then I saw them go off, and I was like, oh, and I should have noticed he had a Boulder, Colorado shirt on and a bunch of other stuff. And I was like, I thought he looked familiar, but wasn't quite sure, and I didn't want to assume. And I saw him and Eagle powwow after he went and carried the bag, I think, and then they were powwowing afterwards. And
Sure.
so I think that's again what can kind of be said about Memorial is it's easy for the absolute top tier. There's a reason those guys are going 15, 16, 17 down, especially with a big arm, because it can be power hyzer the whole way. And again, even on some of those short holes that are 300, I can get those as well. But those guys are throwing little putters, and some of that makes it a pretty easy scoring hole. Whereas, not to take anything away from those guys, Waco at least has 9 holes in the woods. You're definitely working at Waco if you're going to go 18 down. So
Yeah.
but those guys are in prime time shape. It's really fun to go see how you play it and then watch someone else play it. And oddly enough, I keep ending up playing practice rounds right behind Paul. So I get in a day or two early, like Vegas, Waco. Somehow I end up on the course and I end up catching up to him. And so I get to see him practice a lot of these holes. And it's always humbling that he's doing things. I'm like, well, can't do that. Just can't do that.
Yeah.
So he does a very good job then of going out and executing on that game plan, and we've seen how competitive the tournaments have been so far this year. The guys that are on right now are really working hard.
The level of play is just absolutely through the roof right now. It is
insane. Yeah.
Bananas. Again,
I know my goal this year was to make $1, and now I'm worried because I sit out here. I'm like, if I'm not playing 1050 rated golf, you're almost not even cashing. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of crazy. I played decently well yesterday, and I still think I'm in 30th place, and I need to be in the top 24 to cash. So, like, you're really having to work because there are just so many players that are playing at a really high level right now.
Yeah, it's intense. The overall level is crazy, and then the Paul, Eagle, Rick kind of top echelon. It's just a complete different level again, and it just keeps getting pushed further and further. And when you think the field's starting to catch up to them, then all of a sudden they still kind of maintain that little bit of an advantage.
Yep.
It's just crazy. I can't wait to see what else happens from the rest of the year. So give us your thoughts. So as you said that, Fountain Hills can be pretty easy for those upper players based on the fact that they can just go spike hyzer, take a lot of the obstacles out of play, landing without as much skip because you're increasing the sharpness of the angle, so it's coming in and it's landing and sitting. I know you have limited experience there, but is there anything that stands out for you as like something that could be done to kind of bring the course into kind of a more modern era in terms of the distances and the overall difficulty level for those top players.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've really enjoyed the last couple weeks. I thought Texas State's was really great. I played a tournament in Mobile, Alabama, which I thought was really nice. And so here at Nick Hyde, this has been great too, because what's been interesting at the last couple weeks, and I'll pick on yesterday just because I'm going through my round, but I played with Garrett. Throws a mile. He had two shots, right? My mouth literally dropped open, just dropped to the floor after he threw it because I didn't even know there was a route the way that he went.
Right.
And
He does stuff
on those
that
par
doesn't
fives,
even look possible. It makes no
it
sense.
doesn't even look fast. So I don't know if
The
the coverage is out yet, but
Yeah.
we weren't being filmed, so you're gonna miss. But he eagled both the par fives, right? Took a 5 and a 6. So on those two holes alone, he picked up 5 strokes on me because he's just going these crazy routes.
Sure.
The nice thing is on something like a Mobile or Texas State, some of those long holes, or even Waco, if you pick on Waco, some of those par fours would be, I don't know, say 600 feet. So only one, maybe two players can get there and have an eagle putt. But then someone like me, if you throw 350, you just are going to have an approach into a green with a mid from, say, 250 versus those guys that pump at 400 and 400 plus and then have a putter in shot. So I've noticed that on certain of these courses, like Memorial had a bunch where the par threes were like, well, I had a bunch of those shorties, then everything was like 435. And so again, the big arms always had birdie putts at those, whereas I never had birdie putts. And unless I'm jamming a 60-foot putt, I'm not birdieing those holes.
Right.
And I've noticed a little bit recently where some of these more wooded holes, they're putting a premium on precision. Some of these par fours are 540 feet, but if you don't hit the tunnel, you don't hit the gap, you kick off, you miss the Mando, you can't overpower the course. And so that has been fun. These have been the courses where I feel like if I'm going to compete, it should be right now.
Yeah.
And so I personally like that style of golf because, one, that's how I grew up playing. We have a lot of it in Oregon too, but then also it feels, for me, someone who has a smaller arm, that I can be competitive in that same way.
I prefer wooded golf. I prefer watching it. I prefer playing it. A mix of it is fine. When I watch some of those really just big open courses like that, I'm going to quote Pat McMahon. It's just kind of boring,
Yeah.
It just kind of happens, and you just keep throwing the
Texas
same
State.
shots over and over again, and it
Yeah.
doesn't really seem to be the same as like Waco and the amount of shot shaping that's required. Like I just think that's much more interesting to watch. It's more difficult to execute. I just like all of that much more personally.
Yeah. And I think the Waco and even Texas State last week, I mean, we were on a golf course at Texas State. The first hole is 1,200 feet, pretty open by all standards, but they've then made the whole left side out of bounds. Like even on some of these, quote, wooded / open holes, or even Waco, some of those par fours then have roads and fences. There is huge risk if you're going to bomb something off the tee because it pinches in, say, at 400 feet. And so that landing zone is a lot smaller. And so they encourage you not to throw your high-speed drivers
Right.
and go a little bit shorter, which then is perfect for me. I'm still throwing my high-speed driver, but we're ending up in a similar spot. Memorial definitely had the lake. But again, for the most part, if you just threw a hyzer away from the lake, you were safe.
Yeah.
Some of these other courses have been pretty punishing in terms of the OB. I think one of the goals I've been having lately is to just have a round where I don't go out of bounds. And I don't know if I've done it yet. I was close yesterday, and then on the second to last hole, somehow found out of bounds right at the end of the day, which was a bummer.
Yeah.
But that's how they're trying to get. Again, to me that's great because the precision. Then you need to not only have a big arm, but if you're gonna take on the massive distances, you need to possibly have that risk of being punished for that. And I'm seeing that more with the recent courses than I did, say, at Memorial.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. The thing that stands out for me is like some of the kind of more open par fours and that don't really have like I just feel like they need to stretch the distances on some of those open par fours because when it ends up being like if you put any kind of a decent full power drive in play for the upper players, they're left with like a putt or essentially like 150-foot par three at that point. You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
all they
Yeah.
got to do is get up and down from 100 feet, and it's a tap in birdie. And then,
Yeah.
it's funny that everybody, people want to talk about shrinking the baskets and all this kind of stuff. It's like maybe we just shouldn't have par fours where if you throw one good shot, you're in position to get up and down from 100. Like that's
Yeah.
not challenging at all. It basically becomes like a pitch and putt at that point. There's
Right.
really not much to it.
Yeah, I've seen. So I don't know if I don't think the coverage is out, but when I got here for Nick Hyde, I was watching the coverage from last year, thinking, okay, where do I want to be on certain holes? I don't know if I didn't know this or maybe I didn't pay attention, but the Nick Hyde course is 100% different than last year, except for hole 18, where you throw over the water to finish the tournament. Every single hole has been redesigned,
Oh, so it's same
and
property, but it's just different design.
same property,
Oh,
completely
I
different.
didn't know that.
Baskets are going completely different directions. Tee pads are different ways, and it's really gorgeous. But to your point, some of these par fours I actually like at Waco. I think it's the one, two, three. I think it's that fourth one where it's only a 400-foot par four, but you can't get there in one. And so people are throwing putters, throwing some other stuff, throwing other shots to hit a very specific spot, and it's very tight.
Right.
There's a really cool par four that they have here as well. Again, completely through the woods, but you cannot get there in two. And so you need to put a good first shot. Again, no matter what player you are, you cannot get there in one. And even this one that I think is really cool that they redesigned is a par four. And again, probably Guerra is maybe the only person that took this line that I saw him take. But even he was only, I don't know, 100 feet ahead of me. And I laced something because it was all downhill. He tried to go over all the trees versus I was trying to hit a massive tunnel. And so the shape of the par fours to me seems like it's changing. And that is one way to combat the distance,
Sure.
forcing people to not necessarily take direct right turns, but shots that are very difficult to get the disc to go in one complete shot. So you only have that 150 upshot, and putting a premium on, did you execute the first shot? If so, you are rewarded with an opportunity now to go for that birdie.
Right.
If not, you're having to really pitch out or get to circle's edge or circle two's edge even and make a long putt. So recently I've really enjoyed a lot of the par fours because I'm like, oh, I can get this too.
Nice.
It's attackable for me just as well as someone that's a 1040 rated player and can throw a mile.
I mean, you could argue that that's like a better designed hole. If it's something that you can
For me
execute,
personally,
even if
yeah.
you aren't a huge
Absolutely.
crusher, you can still throw a good shot. And then at the same time, somebody who can throw really far doesn't necessarily have an advantage. They have to still show that same skill and execute that same line. I feel like that's part of why I like woods golf. It's kind of an equalizer in that way, where it doesn't really matter, if you can throw a big open bomb hyzer because you don't have that opportunity to attack the basket in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think disc golf is getting to the point where we either need to be comfortable with having several holes on each layout where par is a good score. Like either we need to kind of come to terms with that where it's like it's okay, par is a good score. Nobody's birdieing this, or we had one birdie on the weekend or whatever, and that's okay. Or we just need to accept the fact that disc golf is for largely birdie or die. Like it's one or the other because we're not golf. We're not going to be golf. We shouldn't even aspire to be golf. Like we should be embracing the differences between us because this is our sport. It's exploding all the time. We love it for a reason. I kind of resent the mentality of, hey, we need to more closely resemble a sport that we don't play. Doesn't really make sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're not doing things to more closely resemble other professional sports, necessarily. So I think we either need to come to terms with being okay with par being a good score on several holes in order to kind of, curb the difficulty in terms of according to par, or just, be okay in the fact that we are a birdie or die sport. It's more fast paced and you need to be scoring to win.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was one that I think there was a little controversy at Texas State's last week. It's one of those ones in the back nine where it used to be a par four. They changed it to a par three this year, and there's just no way to get there in two. It's not long. I think it's like, again, it's like 400 feet, but it runs right alongside a creek on the right side.
I know the
And
hole you're
so,
talking about. I watched
okay,
the coverage, yeah, and they said that basically I think there were exactly
there was
zero, yeah, zero
zero
birdies.
birdies the entire weekend. And I actually don't mind that. I took a three on that hole two times and I bogeyed it once, but that felt like the days that I parred it. I was like, that is fantastic. I put the shot exactly where I needed. I executed an upshot or I made a putt. There were at some point three good shots on that hole.
Right.
That still feels, quote, like a birdie, regardless of whether you're writing a three down on the scorecard. And at that point, I wasn't losing any strokes to the field. So
Sure.
I didn't mind that. And then there were some other holes where you felt like, okay, this is one I need to get. A par five with no out of bounds anywhere, that is probably the one you want a birdie. So that was a good mix to me because you have a hole that is eagleable for the big arms, birdieable for someone like me, and then you turn around and you have a hole later on in the course where literally not even the best players in the world could get a two on it, or at least it wasn't worth the risk.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't
so
worth
again,
going for
I
it.
like that strategy. I played a practice round with Joel Freeman during that tournament, and he and I did throw some practice shots on that hole, and he did park the basket. And so we were talking, do you ever go for that shot? And he's like, I just threw 8 discs. I got one to the basket. The only way I'm throwing that is if I'm being filmed or if I'm on lead card the last day.
Right. Yeah, if
So
you're in
that was
striking distance or something, and you really
you
need
need
that.
to pick one up on the field. So that's I don't know. That's kind of a cool, way not necessarily to add stress, but to add drama, if you will. Not that we necessarily need drama in sport because it is pretty interesting as it is right now. But
Sure.
that was what we were even talking about of when do you go for that shot. I think there's another really tight par three on that hole earlier on that they talk about is like you just need to get through this teeny tiny gap. I think it's hole 8 or something at Texas State. And some people are saying this one's not even fair because you almost have to get lucky. Same thing in practice. Joel and I were playing. We both parked it. Didn't ever park it during the tournament, of course. It took fours and fives on it because you can do it once, but sometimes it is luck.
Right.
But even a perfect shot is rewarded, and there probably weren't that many twos on that hole. So I don't mind a challenging hole because then it's challenging for everybody. A big bomber hole to me favors a select group of individuals.
So, other than some of the other events you're playing, you're largely following the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and it's only been what, 2 events so far.
2 events on the Pro Tour. Yep.
With so much of the problems with the media and all the different issues with the fans and Jomez and this whole like kind of negative storm that the Disc Golf Pro Tour has been dealing with online. What has it been like on the ground, like from a player's perspective? Or is there like a lot of unrest at the events? Are the players seeming to be like, concerned about the media and all that kind of stuff? Like, is there any perception of any of those issues from the course and the player's perspective?
It definitely has been a talking point. The events themselves are run really well. So from that perspective, it's actually exceeded sort of my expectations of what it would be like. Everything's prepared early. The caddy books are phenomenal. You have tee times. They have people announcing you. The crowds are good. They have vendors selling food in between rounds. Like the whole event atmosphere has been really great at those. I think the live scoring for, again, me, like I have my mom, sending me texts like, "Ooh, wow, you really struggled on hole 4 today." I'm like, thanks, mom.
Yeah,
So
I've been keeping
she
in touch. I was able, you can go into UDisc and click the little star next to the
yeah.
player's name, and they'll pop up, so you can follow
So you
all
can
your
kind
favorite
of
players
follow,
that
yeah,
way, and
exactly,
I have
follow the
you in there.
players, and so we've had even rounds where I think at well, Texas State's wasn't at a Pro Tour event, but they actually had someone following us and doing UDisc Live for the card. We didn't even have to do it ourselves. So there is this momentum into making sure it is available and out there. I think when at Memorial, uh, I was in a restaurant and they actually were playing, and maybe the restaurant was affiliated with the tournament because it was kind of close to Vista del Camino. But they actually was like a sports bar, and they actually had the live coverage of the Pro Tour going on. I was like, wow, that's fascinating. That doesn't look that bad. Now,
Yeah.
with that said, I don't know if I've watched any of the coverage from those 2 events. Now, for me, either luckily or thankfully, I followed the main groups every single day, and so I didn't I didn't need, I personally don't feel the need to go back and watch the coverage. But if you're not doing what I'm doing, and those are two pretty large events, that would have been pretty nice to see the coverage. And I think we kind of got spoiled at the Waco because the TD, from what I understand, made a pretty big deal about making sure Jomez was there. And so while they may not have had main card coverage, we at least had the Jomez coverage that we've come to know and love and expect from a professional event. So
Sure.
my only interaction with it so far has been Memorial, and yeah, from what I've heard and what I understand, hasn't been that great. The events themselves have been great. So
Yeah.
those two, we'll see how Jonesboro goes. I know there was Smashbox announcing they're getting involved, so I don't quite know if they're filming or if it's just more interviews or what that'll look like.
No, well, essentially, from what I understand, Johnny and Gary will be running the show. They'll be doing the switching and all the producing from Johnny's home base, where
Okay.
where they run Smashbox from, and then Terry will be like a field reporter. So Terry will be there, and then they can cut to him at various times, and his mic. He'll be able to do the post and pre-round interviews, post-round interviews, kind of player
Okay.
check-ins, and all that kind of stuff. And then I believe Nate and Val will still be the kind of booth commentators from out here in Oregon.
Okay.
So that should be a huge improvement because obviously Johnny has all the skill, and he was the one running the show from Memorial, and I think that's largely why it wasn't so bad. It was pretty solid. It looked good. He was
Yeah.
there. The camera work wasn't ideal, but he has a lot of experience working with that too. So he's already
Right.
they've already been talking to the guys on the ground, and I'm sure Terry can give pointers and all that kind of stuff too. He's very well experienced filming and all that stuff. So I'm
Right.
ecstatic about that move. I think it's going to be really helpful. The thing I'm not stoked about is that they decided to take it off of YouTube, which to
Oh,
me is
really?
just a really strange move. Yeah, it's only going to be on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, like DGPT.TV or something like that, streaming. I don't know if Steve understands from a technical aspect how much more difficult that makes it to watch.
Yeah.
You can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your laptop, but then you have to like screen mirror. Like I have a Roku player, or if you have a smart TV or something like that, a lot of those have
Yeah.
YouTube built in, so it's much more easy to kind of just stick it on
Right.
through YouTube, and then the chat's there and the whole interface, plus the fact that there are like literally billions of people watching YouTube on a daily basis. It just doesn't
Exactly.
seem like a smart move to me. I don't understand the. I guess they find it easier to get the ads and run it all in the way they want with the new kind of streaming system they're using, or something. I
Yeah.
would be interested to know the details of why they made that decision, because it doesn't seem like a good call to me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously,
I
I'm
don't
a big YouTube supporter, and
proponent. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. If I can get it on my phone and screen mirror that onto my TV, that's great, but it's definitely not nearly as effective as just being able to stick it on the YouTube app on the Roku and just play it, and then have my
Right.
phone free for whatever else. It
Right.
just seems like it's going to be a little bit more of a downside. It's frustrating because it's like, okay, we did, they made a good call that everybody seems to be happy about, and then they also made another weird call like right at the same time, and you're like, wait, why couldn't like what happened now? Like we need
Right.
to do this now? Like why couldn't we just leave it on? I don't know. It's frustrating, and I'm trying to give as much benefit of the doubt as I can, but it's
Yeah.
been rough, man. It's been really rough, and
Yeah.
I was happy when I heard that Smashbox was being involved, but honestly, the main thing I felt was relief. It's like, oh, this is
Right.
huge. Like that takes so much pressure off. Like I was starting to get really concerned about the way things were going, and because I don't want the Pro Tour to fail. I mean, I think that's a really stupid way. The people that want it to fail now because they took their Jomez away are just really selfish and kind of
Right.
childish. I don't like that mentality. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed by it as well. I'm a huge fan of what they already had going. The main thing from my perspective is just they just derailed so much momentum that they had
Yes.
built up. Like they were all stronger together than they are apart, and now it just put this big fissure and crack in between everybody and split it all apart, and just it just eats up so much momentum that the sport overall had with Smashbox and Jomez and the Disc Golf Pro Tour all working in together. It just seemed like it was so much more powerful than they are separate. So we'll see. I hear that they are definitely back to continuing talks with Jomez and Central Coast as part of this new thing. Like, I think they are actually trying to talk to them again and see if they can come to different terms or what. But I don't think we're done hearing announcements from the Pro Tour. I think Steve has realized that things have not gone the way he wanted.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it goes, I guess. Have you had any interactions with Steve? Have you met him at all?
I've talked to him, but it was more small talk. He was there at Waco, and just explained or just kind of exchanged pleasantries, I'd say, and asked how I was going, if I was playing, and so yeah, it seems like a good guy. The other thing that was interesting, which I don't know if people caught glimpses of this or not, but at the Jomez 100K party, one of the people that Jonathan thanked was Steve Dodge.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if people know that, but they're like, he was even saying, like, I get that there's a lot of animosity and anger right now towards what the Pro Tour is doing, but they also originally were the first people to hire Jomez and get us out to the Pro Tour in 2017 and give us 10 events and guarantee us work for the entire year. And yes, it is 2 years later, and right now we don't have that guaranteed work. It's not to say that there isn't something that'll change through this process.
Yeah. I
Jomez
think that's a very fair way to think about it, because it's totally true.
Yeah,
you know,
it was a
they
very
were given
adult
a huge opportunity to go out and follow those events and be on the road full time and whatever else. Yeah, like that's totally fair.
Yeah, they're trying to do what's right. Yeah, I've heard some it's more gossip of why they couldn't come to an agreement. I don't know if I should share. It sounds like that's probably true, but I thought it was money related, and that sounds like that's actually not the case.
Yeah.
Again, it was sort of like a difference of.
From what I heard, it was mostly an issue in terms of where the coverage would be shown. I think like Jomez obviously wants it posted on their channel, and I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour was trying to make sure that the coverage was being put on their channel, which makes sense to some degree and also makes absolutely no sense, because if I wanted to announce something and I could put it on my channel here, or I could put it on Jomez, like what's the bet? Like, which one of them has 100,000 subscribers? The other has like 30. So like that makes no sense to me either. But then you can also make the argument that the only reason, or one of the reasons why Jomez gained so many subscribers, was because they were playing all the big events that people want to watch. They were covering the events that people want to watch. So it's not like Jonathan and the whole crew could have been doing the exact same amazing coverage of B tiers and C tiers. They would not have the same amount of pull. Like, it just wouldn't be the case. So it kind of goes both ways. It's interesting because people are acting like Jomez is just like, the Pro Tour has nothing to do with the fact that Jomez got as big as they are. And I don't think that's fair. You know, I think it was a mutual thing, which gets back to what I was saying earlier, is that it's frustrating because they had so much going together and working together. It was going so well that it just frustrates me. Yeah.
Yeah, they both benefit from a symbiotic relationship, and it's annoying that it's not going that right way.
Yeah, for sure.
At the moment.
So let's get back to you and your personal bag. So you said you lost some plastic. Did you try to replace it with the same molds, or have you been testing out any new plastic, or how is that going?
Some different. So I'd say I moved my main drivers. I moved to Shrikes. I had, for whatever reason, a stack of them. So I was trying to find something in my bag of extras that I had duplicates of. And so I have a handful of Star Shrikes, which I liked before, and they kind of were always like in or slightly out. But the Havoc Sheriff combo seemed to be very good for the way that I throw.
Yeah.
But Shrike seems to be a pretty similar complement to that. So
nice.
Been beating in a few Shrikes, and then I did replace my Sheriff, although this one, mostly because I like the color, was a Burst Sheriff, and so it's just slightly more stable. So it doesn't stand up quite as much. I think that the other one, which again could have been because I had it for years, it just had this nice sort of stand up I could put on a little hyzer and it'd stand up and fly for a ways. So,
Yeah.
um,
If you want that kind of slightly broken in, like a little bit less stable than the Sheriff, a regular like Lucid Trespass might not be a bad idea.
I do have a trespass, yeah, somewhere in my car here or my RV. So, yeah, I've been toying with a few other things to kind of see what if there's a different mold. I've actually been from the rock perspective. I've kind of gone to your disc golf nerd compass has been my go-to mid-range right now.
Nice.
So that's been pretty great. Although I just added a Rock 3 back to the bag, and then
I just
yeah,
picked
I've
up a
always had
DX Rock 3 to play around with recently.
nice.
Maybe you could take that off my hands when you come back to town because
Yeah,
I don't think I need it. I just kind of wanted to check it out.
yeah. And then yeah, destroyers I've always had around. So then it's just kind of playing around with different stabilities. So I have a couple. I think I have a champ one in the bag, and I think I just added the Ricky Raptor, and I have another star one um, from one of the Stumptown Slosh series. So I have a couple different destroyers that are kind of rotating in the bag there.
Okay.
Um, and
What was the one
then
that you
yeah,
lost?
I lost. It was a star destroyer, but it had almost had like those bubbles in the rim, kind of.
Oh, okay.
Um, and so it just had a great flight. It was probably the most dependable disc in my bag, and so I could get that to essentially do whatever I wanted. The Ricky Raptor ones though have been great right away, so there hasn't been a lot of break in time. I also got a slightly lighter one, which I think is maybe what I need to do is go not quite max weight
Hmm.
on all my stuff. I think that's probably better for my arm speed. So that combination has been pretty nice.
You might find that even with some of those like 12, 13 speeds, some of the high 160s are actually more overstable at times.
Yeah, I had a yeah. It's been interesting. I've been trying to commit to a little more field work as well. So not only just traveling all the time, but getting some field work in. And I actually added. I lost my Mystere as well, which was kind of my large Annie disc.
Hmm.
And so I put a Roadrunner in the bag to replace that. And I think I was out in the field the other day, and I think Roadrunner's what speed 10 or 11. And even my Thunderbird, I want to say, I was basically driving as far as my Shrikes, my Destroyers, my like these are maybe 5 feet apart. So sometimes I wonder if there is something with that speed, or if there's just something that's not quite clicking on my timing, or but that's always good because you get on the course and you're just convinced that it has to be this disc no matter what. And then you got to the field and some of those other discs fly just as well with maybe even less variability. So
Right.
there's a lot of, and again, some of it is, are they new? Are they not flying exactly the way once I beat them in? So some of it's just a little bit of a learning curve again as I test out some new solutions.
Right on. Well, that sounds good, man. So you're in Texas now. What do the next few weeks hold for you?
Next few weeks. So after this, I'm in my quest to make sure I hit up all 50 states this year. I'm gonna pop up into Oklahoma, probably for just a day or two, probably play a couple courses, and then work my way over to Jonesboro, Arkansas. So that's really the next event that I have, and then technically have a week off after Jonesboro. So I think a bunch of people are going up to Moline to play in the Rumble, and I'm either going to hang out around Kansas City, so I'm close to Emporia for Glass Blown Open. But those are sort of my next two main events would be Jonesboro, Emporia, and I think a lot of people are going to Utah Open, but I'm gonna have to skip that because my sister's getting married. So it's been a little bit of a grind here where I've played essentially every weekend since I left.
Wow.
After Jonesboro is my first weekend off, and so I may just take that easy. I have some friends in Kansas, Kansas City, St. Louis in there, so I may get a little kind of like a little travel weekend in. Um, then it's GBO, and then it's kind of then it's my sister's wedding. So I'll have this nice little on-off weekend schedule here coming up in the next few weeks, and then next thing you know, we're on the West Coast swing. So San Francisco Open, most likely at this point. I don't think I'm going to get into the Masters Cup. I was pretty low on the wait list, and so I'm trying to decide: do I kind of go and practice there just to play the course, or do I come back to Portland a week early? Because after that, we have Portland Open, Beaver State, and then for me, that's home base. So that
Did you
gives me a
get into
chance
Beaver
to.
State?
I'm on the wait list for Beaver State as well, but I'm high on the wait list. I think I'm 10.
Okay.
So that feels promising. I'm hoping. I'd really like to play in that. I'm also, because I haven't won any money yet, I'm also signed up in the lottery for the AM side. Um,
Oh, right.
so
Okay.
I'm hoping. I was two spots out of cashing last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, and was kind of feeling like Nick Hyde might be the spot to do something. And I don't know if they're going to only let this be a 2-round tournament now, or we're going to try to cram in 2 rounds tomorrow. So I don't quite know what the plan is
Yeah, I was thinking
here,
about
but
that too. Like, what does
um,
that mean with the round canceled? Is they going to try to push it back a day, or is it just going to be a
um,
2 round event, or what? That's kind of weird.
well, again, the nice thing is pretty much everybody. I would say everybody's either here or at Vintage right now. So everyone's going to Arkansas. Dallas to Jonesboro really isn't that far. Most people aren't necessarily trying to hit up all 50 states, so no one's going to need to take this weird route through Oklahoma that I'm going to take. But uh, I don't think it's that far. I want to say it's like 5 or 6 hours. So I think they could push it back. It's a matter of, I don't know if the park is rented, or I don't know if they need to secure anything with the
Sure.
city. But I remember there was a tournament, was it last year or 2 years ago, where I think that third round it rained or a massive storm, and they ended up canceling it and declared the winner for whoever was leading after the second round. I want to say, I can't
Yeah,
remember when that was, but
that's
yeah, I
happened a
don't
few
know.
times in the last few years.
Yeah, it seems like it's always been the third round though, and so I don't know. 8 years you're supposed to play 3 rounds. Now, do you get an exemption because of the weather? From what I've understood so far, we're playing same tee times that were scheduled today, which means that again those top guys, Eagle Garrett and Nick Newton, I think those guys are teeing off at like 3, maybe 3:30. So that's not enough time to get 2 rounds in tomorrow. So it's either going to be a 2 round, or maybe we're going to try to do our third round on Monday.
That's tricky. That must be frustrating for the guys that are vying for wins like that too. When you enter a tournament, you expect it to have a certain number of rounds to kind of get in position that you want, and then to get that cut short must be really frustrating.
Absolutely. It makes me really mad. I had 3 pretty routine approach shots that I completely messed up yesterday. Um,
That's the
and,
worst.
honestly, that is the worst. That's why I feel bad about the round, but just those alone is a -4 round versus a minus one. And then that's top 20. So, if I only have 2 rounds, in theory, I think I could clean those up. If I have 2 more rounds to go, I feel pretty confident that I could move up, the 9 spots, 10 spots, and get in that top 24. But with only 1 round to go, I better be busting it tomorrow, and every mistake is going to be a lot more punishing than you would think after yesterday. I was like, oh, that still was a good round. I got to clean that up, and that's a 1,000 rated round rather than a 980 rated round. So with only 2 rounds, there's just a lot less time. So you have to be. It's going to be whoever played perfectly yesterday and can do it for one more round if that's the way it's going to be structured.
Right. Yeah, we'll see how that goes, I guess. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, upshot problems and upshot mistakes are one of the most frustrating things. Somebody had put on Facebook recently, like, what upsets you more, three putting or, like, I forget what the other one was, like trying to play safe and still ending up out of bounds. And both of those things are obviously frustrating.
Those are. Yep.
But for me, the worst thing is a wide open upshot and then leaving it like 40 short and then missing the putt. That drives me absolutely insane. It just
Agreed.
there's no excuse for it. That's the thing that really drives me bananas. And I also realized that I honestly don't three putt like ever. I almost never three putt. It's something
Yeah.
that I just don't deal with because I'm a lot of times I'm either getting inside the circle to have a look, and then I'll either make the putt or not, and then I'm always generally really close.
Pretty close afterwards. Yeah.
Or my shot, I'm not getting anywhere near the basket, and I'm throwing an upshot, and then I'm trying to tap in, So
Right.
it's very rare that I ever have the three putt thing, but there's definitely plenty of times where I just leave the upshot a little short, and yeah, that's just the most frustrating thing when you're like, oh, I'm just toss it up there from 100, and then all of a sudden you're 40 short and hating life. Just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think what's honestly that's some of the consistency like that separates the 1,000 rated player from anyone that's below that. I've noticed. So I played. I think it was in Mobile. I was playing with actually Cameron Colglazer. Just one of the things that I've noticed talking about upshots is, to me right now, besides the fact that those guys throw further, but it's their ability to scramble is, I think, what separates the upper echelon from the lower. And so there's this massive par four. It's one of the hardest holes in the course. Excuse me, par five. through dense forest, and I don't know if he grip locked. I don't know exactly what happened, but he essentially hit the first tree off the tee pad, and it went maybe 20 feet and kicked just dead left. And I was like, honestly, a 5 on this hole is great if you're in good position. You don't get off the tee and you're in the woods, you're taking a 7. Like, there's just no way. And has a pretty decent out, has a miraculous third shot, really great fourth shot. It's still kind of pin like somehow eventually it takes a 6. And I think I crushed a drive, felt good about where I was. Long story short, I think I also took a 6, but for the most part, I was on the fairway the whole time. And I had one bad approach and missed a putt. And so we both took 6s. And I was like, how is that possible that I was 300 feet further than he was and we got the same score?
Yeah.
And even yesterday, Garrett went out of bounds once on a par 5. He took a 5. I went out of bounds once on a 5, and I took a 6.
Right.
And so those top guys have an ability to not let they too don't throw a perfect shot every single time. I've seen that now firsthand, even from the best players in the world.
Yeah.
They throw a good shot a lot of the time, but then if they do throw a bad shot, it almost rarely turns into a bogey. And that is what is fascinating. Whereas, I throw a couple bad shots around and I'm like, okay, I'm 80 feet out, put this in the circle, grip lock it, it's into a tree, and now I'm putting still inside circle, but I'm completely behind a bush. I don't have a good putt at it. Okay, there's a 4.
Yeah.
You can't have those. So cleaning some of that up, I think, will be huge in terms of the long term. My putting feels fantastic when you're playing all the time. It is amazing. That part of my game feels really good. But it's the up shots. Those seem to be what's really separating when I'm out there playing, to me, those 1,000-rated players from how I'm scoring.
Yeah, and it gets back to what we talked about earlier with par 4s, and that their ability to get up and down from really tricky and bad positions, and then you give them a wide open, 150 feet to navigate, or one or two trees and then 150 feet, 160 feet to navigate. It's just not enough to really push those guys. I feel like Ricky. I think part of the reason why Rick has gotten to the level he's gotten and why he had so much success is he's really good at par 4s. Like, he's so good at just putting the drive in a good position and then getting up and down time after time, And even if he leaves an upshot short, then his long putting ability comes in to save a lot of those.
So good. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my putting's been garbage for the last few rounds. I'm just not nearly as solid as I was, missing inside the circle and really annoying me. But I'm feeling pretty clean off the tee for the most part, so that's good. But if I can just dial in both, I'll be really happy. I've been trying to think about my form a little bit more, and of having good results in terms of my releases and stuff, and I'm feeling pretty good with my angle control and all that's pretty much good. I need to clean up those inside the circle putts, man. It's been killing me lately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of putters, you still have your putters, right? You didn't lose any of those?
I haven't. I did panic. One day I was playing a practice round actually at Texas State's last week, and I can't remember what hole it is. It's one of those holes where there's a stream right behind the basket. I was 45 feet out. It was practice round. I was like, I don't need to run this. It's just a practice round, no big deal. And I was like, but maybe I'll end up here in the tournament. That's what we're out here for, is to practice. And you can make a 45-footer. Ran it, hit top of the cage, and just perfectly went and floated into the stream. And I was like, oh, that's fine. That barely went off the basket. It's not going to be deep. I was out there for 45 minutes. I was almost to the point where I was going to just take off all my clothes and jump into that stream. I was like, I cannot lose this putter. I've had it for 8 years. It's the only thing that I use. It is my prized possession.
Right.
Thankfully, I did find it. So I get a little nervous playing practice rounds and running stuff. But putters are good. I have all of my XDs in the RV. So even if I did lose one, I do have a few extras. But yeah, that first one is very important to me. So yeah, thankfully I haven't lost any putters.
That's good. Yeah, I have an extra one for you here too. It's funny. I gave it to my friend because she had come out to play her first round ever, and I had her try a few different things, and the XD ended up working the best for her. And I gave it to her, and then after I realized you putted with those and that they're out of print, out of production, I was like, hey, can I have that disc I gave you? Can I have that back?
That back.
Believe me, I'll make it up to you. I got plenty of other discs. So I gave her a nice soft anode putter from MVP,
Nice.
which is a great disc. It'll be just fine for the one time a year she might play or whatever. She's not that
Right.
into it. And I got a
Exactly.
nice white, slightly broken in DX
I'd
XD
say
for you.
that was my
It
favorite. The
should be
white.
good. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah. Add to the
it might
arsenal.
not be the worst idea just to have one that you're not concerned about for any of those risky situations. If there's any kind of water or thick brush or something, you
Yeah.
don't have to
Yeah. I
chance
actually now
it. You know.
carry. I actually carry my other white XD putter with me every round just in case something happened during a round that I have my other sort of trusty one right by. But
That's good.
um, for the most part, yeah, trying to avoid any disaster with those.
So from my perspective, the season so far, it definitely seems like this whole media and like not necessarily media, but this whole plan that Discraft has put into place, bringing in Paul, bringing in Ulibarri as well, ton of other players, and all the hype surrounding that seems to be working really well. Have you seen like a lot of Discraft discs and players out there on tour so far?
Yeah. I would say I don't know who I was talking. I actually played a practice round with Paul Ulibarri
Uh huh.
at Memorial actually.
Nice.
So we didn't really get into the specifics, but he was playing with Brian Earhart uh, and so I was just kind of like listening to some of their conversations and um, I don't know if it was that weekend or something after. Maybe it was the next weekend, but I feel like those two they're traveling in a massive Discraft RV. So far, I think we've done all of the exact same tournaments, and so I keep seeing them everywhere so far.
Nice.
We've been at all the same tournaments, and so I'm trying not. I mean, I think they recognize my face. I don't want to interrupt them every single time, but um, you go out on the course, and the Discraft social media game is strong. Obviously, we've been seeing just because Jomez has also been a lot of these recent Texas tournaments that both Paul and Brian then have become sort of a commentary team as well, and so they're doing a lot of things to push the Discraft brand and get it out there. And then in turn, I can't even tell you the number of people that you play in a practice round. I'm like, what are you throwing? Kong. What are you throwing? Kong. Like,
Yeah.
I swear it was like, do I need to go get one of these? Because I think every single player has something of the Paul Macbeth line or a Kong. Or
Sure.
everybody has something in the bag
That's
unless you
crazy.
are a like besides like Ricky and James, unless those specific guys that are sponsored by the competitors,
Right.
every other sort of semi-casual or person like me that isn't really the upper echelon touring pro, everybody has a Kong somewhere in their bag, or so
Well,
I think
I have three now because I had a viewer
yeah,
send me one to review, and then Sun King send me two, so I should still have a couple around. So you can, if nothing else, try
okay,
some when you come back to town, see what you
try it
think.
out, yeah,
But honestly, if you're throwing a Ricky Destroyer, based on the I only have one Rick Destroyer that I've thrown, but I was throwing a Kong and a Ricky Destroyer back to back the other day, and they fly very very similar. It's not really
similar,
that different. They
yeah,
feel about the same. I think the Rick Destroyer is a little grippier as new, although Discraft plastic for sure gains in grip over time. Especially
yeah,
the ESP blends start out really slippery. And as you break it in, it definitely starts to get a nicer feel as time goes on. So
okay,
yeah, there's really not a huge difference between the two of those, but it's definitely crazy, man. I've noticed it for sure. You see so many more people selling and stuff online and trying out different things, and the Discraft videos I've been putting out are getting big views, and it's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, I heard someone say, which again, I don't know if it's substantiated, but they've already recovered their payment to Paul so far this year. So
I wouldn't doubt that, man. And if they haven't
I
done it
wouldn't
yet,
doubt it
they
either. I mean,
sure as hell will before the 5 years is out because it's just ridiculous.
absolutely. But yeah, for someone to say they've already recouped it in what, 8 weeks
Wow.
seems kind of insane.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
bananas. They've
but
sold so many of
supposedly
them.
that,
Because I was
yeah,
paying
supposedly
attention
that's how
when
quickly they're moving.
the midnight release happened on Infinite Discs, and I went and checked it out, and I looked through, and I considered getting a few, but I didn't end up bothering. But they had like 500 or something in that initial run,
Huh?
and I checked again in the morning; they were all gone.
Wow,
Just ridiculous, man. And it was like that across the internet. Like everybody had sold out from them in the first night,
that's
overnight,
crazy.
and then the next day on Facebook, everybody's trying to sell. Oh, I got this really particularly swirly one. Why don't you give me 3 times retail price for it? It's like, oh my god, the resell people just drive me insane. You just hoard
Yeah,
all the nice ones you can get to try to put them on Facebook for triple retail, double retail. It's like, come on, man.
yeah,
Just get the disc you want to throw, like, or
right.
just start an actual like business where you're a wholesaler and you have your own retail thing. But like the guy who buys 25 of them on Infinite or something just to flip them is that just,
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a personal pet peeve of mine. I'm not into that.
yeah,
It's frustrating. All right, brother. I think I'll let you go. I'm happy I was able to finally track you down. It's like, where in the
yeah,
world is James Hafer? You're just like, you're out
exactly.
there. You got to follow the trail of clues and see if I can
You
track you
do.
down. But yeah, definitely glad to get some insight on how things have been going for you. We'll definitely check in again.
Yeah,
If nothing else, when you're back in town, we'll have to get around in and kind of see how things are going. Maybe we'll do another bag
absolutely.
check like we talked about, and we'll keep it rolling. So,
I love it.
give us the plug one more time if people want to try to find you on social media. What's the easiest way to keep track of what you're up to?
Yeah, you can find me at my full name. So it's James A. Hafer. Yeah, it's mostly disc golf at this point. So for what we're talking about, that's probably the most interesting. But yeah, I'm traveling to all 50 states this year, living in an RV. So there's a variety of things that end up popping up on the Instagram. So
Absolutely.
plus, if you like to see what a struggling professional is out there doing, and not those top guys, that's why you should follow me.
Yeah, and then if they want to keep track of you during the pro tour, they can add you to their favorite players on UDisc Live, and
Yeah.
see that Rick's only getting you by 40, 30, 35 strokes or so, depending on the event.
Yeah, a couple. Yeah, the one Texas State's, yeah, which is frustrating because that's the whole other thing. I think we all experience that too. The difference between a practice round and a professional round or like a
Sure.
tourney round
Yeah.
is so different. Because Texas State's, I even said that. I said if I can go 2 or 3 down per day, I think -9 or -10 ended up being top 10 at Texas. And while Ricky did end up getting the 20s there, um,
Yeah.
that was a very challenging
With
course.
a course
So
record, setting the course record by a few
yeah, and he
strokes.
set the course record. So again, I'm not trying to go and do that. -12 hadn't been done. Most other people were like the last day hot round was like -6, -7. So 3 down for me is actually what I threw in practice, and I was like, okay, that actually felt really good.
Yeah.
Do that thing all 3 days, and you're there. So yeah, it is funny when you have a practice round and then you go out there and you're like, well, Rick is ahead of me by 18 strokes, so not gonna
Well,
win this one,
I mean, he
So
should be. He should be it,
should
but
be
at the
exact,
same
yeah,
time, yeah, I hear you. It's a little disheartening. The thing that I've noticed time after time with Paul and Rick especially is there are times where you're watching them on like Jomez or something, and it doesn't even look like they're playing well. Like they're kind of like hitting trees off the tee and whatever else, and then somehow by the end of it, they're right there. The score is right there.
yeah,
They're 10, 12, 13 down. You're like, I don't understand this. This is so frustrating. And when I was
yeah,
before Ricky kind of broke through, I was a huge fan of him, and then Paul would just win all the time anyway, and it was so annoying. And then it would be like times where I'm thinking like, oh, Rick's got he's got a bunch of strokes, and Paul's not doing very well. And then all of a sudden I refresh it, and Paul's gone 6 birdies in a row, and he's back within 2 strokes. You're like, what? What
yeah.
happened? Like you can never count them out. It's just insane.
Not at all. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, it's just they execute, they scramble, they can hit a tree and then still find a way to get to a spot where they can bang putt. Especially, I mean, honestly, his putting has been really fun to watch this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get into circle two and you almost think it's going to be made. Whereas like okay, I'm gonna try to hit 1 out of every 4 from circle two, and they're probably going for 50. 3 out of 4. They're trying to hit a lot of those. So
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. And they
their
are.
range, and yeah, exactly, and then they are. So then it's really interesting because they score well even if they do hit trees, and so that's the good and the bad of watching them play is sometimes hitting a 3 foot gap is hard for even the best players in the world. Okay, I don't feel as bad about making it, or if you do hit it in practice, like okay, I do have some accuracy, I do have some skill, but then just being uber repetitive and consistent like those guys is what you have to do.
Yeah, almost mechanical at that point where it just
Yeah,
happens the same way every time. It's really impressive
yeah,
to be able to do that. Me and Andy were just
yeah,
talking about this the other day with putting, and like it's not hard. Like put a 25-foot putt, like the physical mechanics of that and the ability to do that is not difficult. What is difficult is being able to do it over and over and over and over again in the
Yep.
same manner. That's what makes the difference with that particular skill. It's all about
Yeah.
being able to do it on
Yeah.
a consistent
And
basis, and that's why it's so
absolutely.
important to dial in your routine and every little thing that you can do to be as consistent as possible with the physical aspects of it, because that's all
Yep.
there is. If you can just do it over and over again, you can be amazing, and it helps your score so much. But then again, if you're throwing all the same drives and all the same upshots, and then you just kind of drag your putt a little bit wide one way or the other, it's just so easy to lose strokes that way.
Yeah. And I actually, that was, I watched, I think it was a video with Johnny Football and Paul at Waco. And he was talking about, hey, you haven't won yet, or, what do you feels off? And he was saying that, it's my putting that feels off. And I think he made a comment, Paul did, that was something to the effect of, I know what to do. It's not hard. It's just something right now is not clicking, and at some point it will. And that was really refreshing because for me, one odd thing that I've been having happen is I keep throwing things straight into the ground. Um,
Oh,
which never happens. And I don't know, part of it is I'm trying to get full flex. I think part of it is I'm trying to max up the power to kind of keep up on the distance. And so when I'm trying to release it with just slight ante, I'm just driving it through so hard that it's getting the nose down too far.
right.
And I've definitely had, I honestly can't even count at this point. I've definitely done it almost every single round so far this year where I'll have at least one shot that goes less than 50 feet.
Just a straight
Uh,
grounder. Wow.
Straight grounder. I mean,
I've
I've
noticed
had,
that in the past where if I try to hulk up and like really like try to power up on
yes,
something, yeah,
yep,
that's often not a good idea. You often have
exactly.
much better results and really throw farther when you put less effort into it. I'm continually like surprised at just how little effort you can put into a throw and still get it to fly.
Yes.
Like you really don't need to put that much into it. It's strange, but yeah, I know what you mean. Occasionally, if I'm going for that full power throw, you throw the grounder and it goes nowhere, and it's like, damn, I could have
Yep.
thrown a checked up 50% hyzer flip and gotten 3 times the distance I just got
Exactly.
out of
Yeah.
putting all this effort into trying to go for it.
Go for it. And I've had one where it hit and rolled out of bounds. Like some of it's been interesting. And so I keep thinking through that Paul comment, which is I know what to do. I know the mechanics. Clearly, if I'm throwing grounders, there's something that's not quite right. So
Right.
eliminate the consistency. Even if it's happening once per round, I need to get that to once per week, once per month. Start getting that to the place where it's significantly less. And some of that is okay, consciously thinking through what am I doing wrong on that perspective. Everybody has their one. Is it an upshot? Is it a putt like you were talking about? Figure out that mechanical issue,
Yeah.
work on it, and then you will see your score, or for me, your rating, whatever you're trying to work towards, you will see it improve.
Absolutely. All right, brother. On that note, we're going to let you go. Best of luck with
Yeah,
everything going forward. Thanks for being on the show and giving us the update.
happily.
I will be in
Yeah,
touch, and I'll be definitely keeping track of of your scores and stuff as the season goes on, as I have been so far. Good
yeah,
luck.
love it.
Hopefully, you get to play out the rest of this event, and hopefully Jonesboro goes well. I'll be very interested to hear your perspective on that course. That's one that really stands out for me as one I would love to
Yeah,
see in person. It just seems like
looks like a cool one.
a
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
beautiful
So yeah,
track.
we'll have some fun things to update on next time we talk.
All right, brother. All right, be safe, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right,
All
all
right.
right, sounds good.
Cheers, man.
All right, bye bye.
All right, guys, there you have it. That was James A. Hafer on Instagram. Keep up with what he's up to. You can follow him on UDisc as well and keep track of his scoring and see how he's stacking up with the best in the world out there on tour. Big thank you to everybody for your continued support of this channel. Thanks very much for listening. Hopefully, we'll be bringing in more and more people to do interviews and stuff on this show going forward. I have already reached out to a few different folks that I'd like to talk to. So stay tuned for those future episodes, and I'll talk to you very soon. All right. Cheers.